Okay, good afternoon. Welcome back. Today is Friday, 22nd day of September, 2017. And yes, we have an internet issue on the streaming computer. And so I do believe you can hear the sound of my melodious voice.
Yes, we can hear it.
Yeah. But the streaming computer that usually plays the intro and serves other functions, it's down. Now, Michael, you got my email last night about...
I did. I responded to
2 in the morning. Okay, well, I've been struggling all morning to get... Long story. And so the guy was getting ready to show up as soon as the show started, and I said, I got one machine running, so, you need to come back this afternoon. And he said, oh, no, we figured out the problem. I don't even need to come. We've already fixed it. I have hard evidence. This would stand up in a court of law. On the screen, it says, no internet connection. What do you think? And in front of a jury of 12 of my peers. And if they say you have internet and I say I don't have internet, who wins?
I think it would stand up. You win. I'm going with that.
Unbelievable. And also, when it crashed my computer last night, I lost zones and diagrams and charts and whatnots, and oh my goodness. Now, I still haven't had a chance to call that one company to give them a... I'm not going to just give them a piece of my mind. I'm going to give them my whole mind, because I carefully read the instructions, and it said everything you need is included. No sooner did I open it, and I saw what file, when I unpacked the files, I go, there's not even an exe file here. There's no way there's everything. So I read through the, what do you call it that comes with stuff like that? And it says, oh yeah, you need Adobe, instructions, Adobe something or other. And I'm like, man, I went to Adobe, and lo and behold, they had a 1-week free trial with no watermarks or anything, and it's just, you can take a 1-week free trial. We don't even need your email address. Let us know what you think. And Adobe stuff is very pricey. So I'm downloading this fancy, expensive software so I can run this other little program, and it got hung up at about 12%. So I started fiddling around with some other stuff on the computer, waiting, hoping it would unlog jam. And I got the blue screen of uh-oh. So, yeah. It says if you've never seen this screen before, just restart your computer when it's done doing its test. And maybe everything will be okay. If not, contact your systems administrator. So this is when I start talking to myself, because I am my systems administrator. It rebooted itself after about 20 minutes and cranked right up. Internet was fine. I did a speedtest.net. I don't know why, I just did. And my download was fine, but my upload was only like 1.5. I'm like, whoa, that's not good. So I get Cox on the phone, and some guy with a very disturbing British accent. No offense to any of the British folks in our audience, but I'm sure that some Americans have a disturbing accent, to you, like hillbillies or something. I don't know. He spent 2 hours pretty much destroying my whole setup, because I had internet when we got on the phone, but by the time we hung up 2 hours later, I didn't have any internet. I'm screaming like, it's 2 in the morning, just put it back the way it was. And he's like, I'm trying, He maintained a really good attitude through the whole thing. I gotta give him credit for it. So, anyway, guys.
Even with his British accent.
Yeah, that's been my day. How you doing? I'm going to give you the numbers real quick and then pass it over to Mike, and he'll do his thing and recap everything that happened in the live training room today. And this is Raw Radio. You never know what's going to happen next. Okay, these are the cash markets from around the world. we'll start here in the US of A. And I'm going to reload the page just to make sure I got the most up-to-date numbers. And waiting. Okay, here we go. The Dow is down 18 points. NASDAQ is down 3.5. S&P 500 is down 0.5 point. Russell 2000 is up a little over 4 points. So markets are mixed here in the U.S. simply because the Russell is fighting the tide and is up a little over 4 points. In the commodity basket, crude oil is down a nickel, trading 50.50 last, and gold actually having a green day, up $4.39, trading 12.9920 last. In the Asian markets, the Nikkei down 51 points at the close, Shanghai down 5 points at the close, and the Hang Seng down 229 points at the close. That's almost 1%. And so far, that's our only mover and shaker. In Europe, markets mixed also. The FTSE closed up on the session, 46 points, a little over half of 1%. DAX closed down 7.5 points, and the CAC was up 14 points. So mixed, and more mixed, and gold is green. And Jamie Dimon issuing a warning to the world today. Governments will close down Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies if they get too big. Man, this thing has him scared like Herbalife has Ackerman scared. It's the darndest thing I have ever seen. Now, Jamie Dimon heads up the bank that single-handedly has paid more billions of dollars in fines for fraudulent activities than every other financial institution in the world combined since the beginning of recorded history. And he has the stones to come out and say that something is a fraud. I know that John McAfee is a bit of a wild card, but he said it pretty well when he was on CNBC. I have the largest Bitcoin mining operation in America, and between electricity and everything else that's required, it costs me $1,000 to mine one Bitcoin. So yes, even at $3,000, I have a profitable operation. Now, the American dollar. What does it cost to print that? Well, with the paper and the ink, he's like, I don't know, 2 cents, 20 cents. So which is the bigger fraud? You know, we won't even go into the U.S. dollar and the Federal Reserve today because we've said it all before, and you know how we feel. And just in case there's somebody new in the audience, Federal Reserve has absolutely nothing to do with the United States federal government. Thomas Jefferson said long ago, if you ever create a central bank, you will destroy this nation. John Kennedy tried to undo it, and a couple of days after he instructed the Treasury to print our own money, he was taken out in Dallas. And the first act of Lyndon Johnson, once he was sworn in, was to have those U.S. Treasury bills destroyed. So I know that sounds like a plot to some kind of movie, but it's actually the truth. It's what really happened in our history as a nation. So Asian markets are lower because of the North Korea threat, and investors digest China. Oh, China got a credit downgrade. Okay. I was not aware of that. Okay. Well, I got lots more headlines, and John will be joining us. If Garrett got his headset, he'll be joining us. I don't know at this moment. I've been so busy with all these other things. But Michael, if you're ready, sir, you can take the screen.
I will be right there.
You can take it all and take it away.
I will do that. I will switch it over here. Fabulous.
I see
North Carolina.
chats in the chat box. Good afternoon. The internet.
Okay.
Laughing out loud. Yeah, Pete, you're absolutely right. By the way, guys, even though the other computer's down, we are streaming live. Oh, that's what I forgot to say. So, if you can't see the chart, you can't see what Michael's about to do, go to our homepage, cfrn.net. On the right-hand side, click the big microphone, follow the instructions, or simply go to youtube.com/cfrn/live. Okay, you get the same show no matter which door you come in. All yours, buddy.
I was just thinking I was going to show it on the YouTube thing because I just opened it up in the email that I just got, but then it would do that kind of fracturing thing because the picture would be showing the picture, which would be showing the picture, which would be showing the picture, and be showing the picture. So I'm not going to do that.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
No? Okay, I'm not sure that it's going to do this, but hang on. Here it is.
I believe you, even though I don't know what you're talking about.
Now. Okay.
Okay.
Do you hear yourself?
Do I hear myself?
Yeah, because I hear you and me, but it's got like a 10-second delay.
Okay. Well, you know you can turn the volume down on that. Right.
I really was just showing people the YouTube.
No, I understand.
That's
Oh,
what I wanted
you were
to
just
do.
trying to show them how it looks. Okay, good. Yeah, that's good. I don't think we've ever done that. In fact, the little iPad that I use to monitor the YouTube channel while I am on, I don't know if it's going to work today because I'd have to use the Wi-Fi signal from downstairs. The way I finally got the big box online was I bypassed the router. The guy last night assured me the router wasn't the problem, but unfortunately I think it might be. And I just bought it, and I bought an expensive one. And I've gone through so many routers in my tenure as the founder of CFRN that anyway, enough whining.
I have a high-end one that I bought the last time the router went down here, and I went and bought a high-end one, but then I didn't need it, so it was still wrapped. Got the plastic wrap on it. I meant to bring it back, but too late. So now I just got it, and it's probably going to be old by the time I use it. But anyway, let's get into this.
It's all yours. I'm going to hit mute.
Thank you. Okay. Here we go. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Friday, the 22nd day of September 2017. Today, if you want to take our free trial, just go here to the homepage at cfrn.net. Right up here where it says sign up for the CFRN Live Training Room, 100% free trial, user indicators, learn our strategy. Click here. When you click there, you're going to be brought to this page right here. Okay. Now on this page, all we ask from you is for your email address, your first name, and how you found us. You click the submit button, and when you do that, you'll be sent a confirmation link. You have to click on that confirmation link. Okay, if you don't click the confirmation link, well, we don't know you took the trial. So you're gonna make sure you get there and click that link, okay? Look for it in your spam if you don't get it in 5 minutes. Look for it in your spam or whatever folder. It might go in promotions or whatever it is. Okay. Now, to recap. Hey, we had a green day today. If you're going to read the spreadsheet, you're going to read all the CFTC risk disclosures down at the bottom. Today, I'm sorry, I was just looking at the beginning of the week, at the beginning of the month. Today in the live training room, we made 10 ticks on the euro, and we made 10 ticks on the Russell. That's 112.50 on the day. So it took us 20 minutes and 6 trade opportunities to do that, and 112.50 is where we're at when we closed out those. I'm sorry, it did not take 6 trades. It took 3 trades to do it. 3 trades to do it. We had 6 total on the day. So on the month now, 1360 gross. That's over 15 days, averaging 90 a day. And on the year, 26,222. That's over 179 days, averaging 146 per day. 146 per day. So, yeah, that's it. So I'll show you what we did. This is not going to take long because the markets were, again, a mess. We had one break even here in gold, and I missed the long right up here. Okay, right there, I missed that long trade. And we had another break even right here at the end of the day. Okay, we were talking about, over here, I was talking with one of the partners in the room about how it's going to get up to 1300. It'll probably go through it a little bit, and then it'll come back down below it. And that's what it's done. You can see over here, 98.6. It hasn't moved from that. And this is live, real time. It's just stuck. There's 400 on the ask, and there's 423 on the bid. So it's pretty much reached an equilibrium point here. And I don't know what it's going to take to move it. On the euro, we had a break even here and a plus 10 there. That's where we got the goal for the day, right there on the euro. Okay, we had a break even and a plus 10. We missed that one. We missed that one. And during the break, there was a long off the BBC right here that would have been a break even. And that was pretty much it. Might have been a shorting opportunity in here, but it would have been a break even as well. Okay, in the crude now, we did nothing today. It was just really choppy, and Bert and I were going back and forth in the meeting this morning about how when the support and resistance dots, how when they're so close together and it looks like a train track, that means the market's just not trending, and you should probably just go to a different market. Okay. During the break, I would say there was a short here off the BBC that got you into this, but it really wasn't trending there, so I wouldn't have done anything with that. I just left it alone. Okay. Once it got down here, then it was trending, so you could have shorted a momentum short right there. That would have been probably a break even if you followed the rules. All right. The Russell. When I did this one here, it took 9 minutes to get the first 10 ticks here on the Russell. And then I missed the follow-up trade. But, it's been so long since I traded the Russell, I thought it was still worth 10 bucks a tick. And I thought I got my goal right here after 9 minutes. And then Valerie was sweet and kind enough to to remind me that the Russell's only 5 bucks a tick, and I'm only halfway to my goal. and so I had to get the rest out of the euro. But we got 10 ticks there, and I'll blow it up a little bit so you can see it a bit better. We missed the follow-up trade here. It didn't continue the trend. Then it just started going sideways. Then I had a little bit of a bounce off the BBC right here. And it continued up. There was another bounce here, but it wasn't the bounce off the BBC. It would have been the close above the trend line that would have given you an opportunity there. But you see this here at 1040. This moved so fast that it messed up the slingshot, and there was really no way to get into all that. Once it slowed down again, we took another opportunity over here, and that ended up being a break even. Okay, this one over here bounced off the BBC right there. That happened during the break. It's going up into dynamic resistance. So you'd have to get your stop to break even as soon as you have 4 ticks profit in the trade, or close on the other side of the MA1. Okay, that was the Russell today. The ES, it's just sad. Look at that. Nothing on the ES. Soybeans, one of the partners in the room wanted me to look at the daily chart on soybeans just because they had pretty good range today. But you would have had to have gotten up. No. I don't know. It's not that big of a range really. But 76 up to 85. So it was a 9-cent range. I don't know. They didn't have anything. The November soybeans are just sad this year. And when I had I love November soybeans in the past few years, but this year it's just sad. All right, so back here on our recap. Today is the 22nd day of September. We made 10 in the euro and 10 in the Russell. That's 112.50 total. Okay. Now it took us 20 minutes and 3 trades to get our goal for the day, and we had a total of 6 trades. So on the month now we're at 1360. That's over 15 days, averaging 90 per day. Okay. On the year we're at 26,222. That's over 179 days, averaging 146 per day. Okay, 146 per day. And that's where we stand with all this stuff. Okay. If you can read the spreadsheet, you can read all the CFTC risk disclosures down at the bottom. And if you have not taken a free trial with us, go here to the very top of the home page where it says sign up for the CFRN Live Training Room free trial. User indicators, learn a strategy. Click here. When you click there, you'll be brought here to this page where you need to put in your email, put in your first name, tell us how you found us. You hit the submit button, you'll be sent a confirmation link. Okay. Once you click on that confirmation link, then we know that you took the trial, and we would be happy to give you all the information you need to get into our live training room in the morning. Okay. All right. And that is that. So with that, we can send it back out to fabulous Phoenix, Arizona. Studio A.
Yeah.
Studio A overlooking South Mountain, America's largest city park. I had to think about it this way.
That's us. Okay, let me send John just a quick email that tells him I need him to dial in today because I can't access the computer that I usually give him permission. Open up his mic. Unless, are you going to be around a few minutes?
Yeah, I can hang around for a few minutes.
Because then you could open his mic.
Yeah.
Okay, I just sent him off the email. So if he's going to get it and show up, you'll see him pop in 5 minutes. John R.
Okay.
And just open his mic for me. That'll be awesome. Recap of the recap?
Today it took 20 minutes and 3 trades to get to 112.50.
Oh, so you did something different today.
No, I did the same thing I've been doing all week. I just...
Yeah, I know you don't change. Did you notice anything in particular that was different in the market in and of itself?
Actually, the markets were really flat today. They were, I was hoping for some volatility. We had one news event, 2 low-impact news events at 9:45, and I was hoping there was going to be some effect on the market, but there wasn't. The one strange thing that did happen today was the Russell at 10:40. The Russell just jumped and took off like 2 points, and then it came back. And I asked Bert if there was anything on the wires or anything like that to cause it to jump like that, and he said no, it's just the Russell being the Russell. So one thing that's a little bit different. And I still have the charts, right?
You do.
Yeah. Okay. One thing that's a little bit different, and I'll show everyone this. I went over this in the room this morning. Is we have volume on the Russell again. This week.
I noticed the other day that it was starting to climb.
Yeah, we had 72,000 on the 20th, 50,000 yesterday. So far, 36,000 today. So the volume is back into the CME on the Russell. So that is a good thing. And you want to indicator.
Are we completely switched over now?
I don't know what's on the ice, but I think so. I think it was, as you said before, they were going to wait until the contract expired. I mean, I've been hearing things from various people that there's a whole bunch of legal stuff going on between the CME and ICE, but
you know, because I don't have the other computer, can you pass me the screens?
Oh, yeah.
There should only be one of me logged in.
There is only one of you. Yes.
Yeah.
Here you go. It's coming your way.
All right. And I can't monitor myself, but I'll just assume that everyone can see that.
Yeah, I can see.
Okay.
I can see.
So,
and John's still not here.
2502. Oh, John is here?
No, he's not.
Oh,
Not yet.
okay. So below that was 95, 96. I had these all set up, and last night blew it out of the water. Let's see, 2495, and then below that's 2487, 88. Okay. So I won't redo them all, guys, but at least this will give us some perspective on what happened for the week. In fact, I don't think I need to go any lower than that. This encapsulates the S&P's action. Well, above 96.95 we had 0203. Okay, so that'll be our 03. And an 02. Okay. So if we scroll back to Sunday night, these are this week's zones. Sunday night Globex Open, we ran up into that 2502, 2503 area where we got stuck like quicksand basically all week until the Fed came along and pushed it down, and then it ran right back up to that area like a magnet. And then the following day on the Wall Street Open, we ran down, and then we ran right back up, and then we ran down, and here we sit at 95.96. So this gives us a, on the week, our high was 2507 and a quarter. We'll call that 2507, and our low was 2492. So what is that, Michael? 14 points?
Yes, I think.
The low 2492, the high 2497.
15 points.
I'm sorry, the high was 2507. 07 down to 92.
92. Yeah, still 15 points.
Yeah. Yeah, 8 and 7 is 15. So we have a 15-point range on the week. And from a historical perspective, the S&P 500 Emini Futures, for more years than I've been trading, has averaged a daily range from the low to the high or the high to the low, 20 points. So if you're having difficulty with your trading right now, don't beat yourself up too bad, because market conditions have been less than favorable, especially if you're an S&P 500 trader. Now, could you trade zone to zone? Yeah, you actually had a couple of opportunities to do that this week, but certainly not like a normal week. I mean, you literally had 1, 2, 3, 4, you had 5 opportunities. I mean, out of a whole week. So, but no reason to dwell on that. It is what it is. What we will dwell on is North Korea's warning to President Donald Trump and the U.S. On yesterday certainly included the country's usual fiery rhetoric, but underneath its superfluous metaphors, it may have been signaling a more personal message. The statement, which called Trump a frightened dog and a dotard, D-O-T-A-R-D, don't know what that is, maybe it's Korean, was delivered by Kim Jong himself, and it even included a picture of the North Korean leader sitting behind a desk, apparently reading from the statement. Though official communications from North Korea are normally filled with bellicose remarks and often met with skepticism, the country's latest one appeared to take on a more overt personal tone, according to North Korea experts. Such a move is not typical of the country. Kim's statement took a jab at Trump in part by echoing critics who have rebuked Trump's off-the-cuff remarks in the early months of his presidency. Describing Trump's Tuesday appearance before the UN, Kim said, "I expected he would make stereotype prepared remarks a little different from what he used to utter in his office on the spur of the moment as he had to speak on the world's biggest official diplomatic stage. But far from making remarks of any persuasive power that can be viewed to be helpful to diffusing tension, he made unprecedented rude nonsense one has never heard from any of his predecessors." Good. Meeting with South Korean President Moon Jae on Thursday, Trump doubled down and moved to impose further sanctions against North Korea on top of the UN Security Council's recent sanctions. During his UN speech, Trump decried North Korea's continued provocations and said if it threatened the U.S. would have no choice but to totally destroy the country. North Korea already appeared to be following through with its latest threat. Shortly after Kim made a statement, North Korean Minister of Foreign Affairs said his country may consider testing a hydrogen bomb in the Pacific Ocean. It could be the most powerful detonation of an H-bomb in the Pacific. We have no idea about what actions could be taken, as it will be ordered by Kim. It was not immediately clear whether North Korea was planning such an action. The country successfully tested what it said was a hydrogen bomb earlier this month, and it conducted another missile test days later. This guy's gearing up for war, and, if the rest of us don't gear up, I don't see any way that this ends well. I mean, if we have to blow up a whole country, that's not good. I don't understand. If they can go in and get bin Laden, why can't they go in and get this guy? It seems like we're spending an awful lot of time on something that could have already just been resolved. It could have been a non-event. Trump called Korean leader Kim Jong an obvious madman and said he will be tested like never before in a tweet early Friday morning, following a week of escalating rhetoric between the two countries. Kim, who is obviously a madman who doesn't mind starving or killing his people, will be tested like never before. Kim launched a salvo of threats aimed at the U.S. president on Thursday in a statement released by the Korean Central News Agency, North Korea's state-sanctioned news organization. Kim described Trump's rhetoric as unprecedented rude nonsense one has never heard from any of his predecessors. I guess Trump dubbed him the Rocket Man and threatened to totally destroy the country. There's no new news here. It's like two kids on the playground. Unfortunately, somebody's going to end up doing something, and I hope it's Trump before this guy. And I don't think we should blow up the whole country. I've already said that, and I don't think that's necessary. There's a lot of innocent people there who don't want to be there. But yet they are. See, you and I, we were born in America. Man, how much do we take that for granted? It's like we won some kind of lottery. Because here, even if you're in the poorest of the poor, in the direst of straits, in the worst condition possible, you can find food, you can find clothing, you can find shelter, you can find programs, you can find government assistance and welfare and health care. It's not like being poor, poverty-stricken in other countries. In Africa, if you get sick and you can't afford to go to the doctor, you die. if you're hungry and have no food and are too weak to work, if you could find work, you die. There are no government services, agencies, Social Security, food stamps, SNAP. It just, I mean, there are some other countries that do have social services, but there are many countries that don't. I mean, let's face it, 75% of the world's population, when they get up in the morning, they don't even sit on a toilet. I know that's probably a little rude and crude, for family radio, but it's a fact. They squat. 75% of the world's population. But we grew up with them. I grew up with indoor toilets. Now, my mother grew up with outdoor toilets, and my grandparents grew up with outdoor toilets. But my whole life, just like my kids grew up with the internet, they'll never know a world without the internet unless something really bad happens, because it was already here when they were born. And that shape shifts your mind and your consciousness and all of that. Okay.
John, I'm going to open up your mic for you. Okay. There you go. You have an open mic now, John.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you.
Yeah, John, one of my computers is down, the one that I normally would unmute your mic on. So Michael hung around to take care of that for us. And I don't know, I know you and him have spoken passing, but you mentioned something that he said yesterday when you were talking, or maybe it was Wednesday when you were talking to Wayne, but you said, like Michael said earlier today when he was doing the recap. I was just wondering if you had any comments or questions for him about anything.
How'd he do today?
A little better.
I did get the goal today.
3 trades and 20 minutes?
Yeah, 3 trades in 20 minutes today to get the goal. There really wasn't any change in the volatility. I was really hoping that we were going to have more volatility today, but I mean,
actually, I think it's about to start. Look at the just got a buy on the Nasdaq. We kind of actually went short the markets going into the close yesterday. It was starting to kind of sell off, and I figured something was going to happen overnight, and it did. And it's become a bit of a routine. The market breaks. We got a break down to about 59.12 or somewhere on this on the Nasdaq, and we went back long just under about 59.19, I think, and it's back up to 30 now. There was a bit of a test this morning. 59 got down to 59.10.5, I think, and then it got up to 59.40. Tested this morning, and it kind of looks like it's going to go higher now. And I'll tell you why. The transports are on the point of making new all-time record highs right now. That's going to generate a Dow theory buy signal. But remember, I said back on Bastille Day it was the strongest day in history. I wasn't kind of fibbing or just saying it for the sake of saying it. It really was the strongest day in history. And it doesn't mean to say that the strongest day in history, the next day is going to be a market correction, although there was a little bit of a pullback right after Bastille Day. In fact, I think the mid-cap peaked.
It's pretty typical to get a day of consolidation after you have a really wide range day.
Right. Well, the thing about the Bastille Day was possibly more indices worldwide hit new all-time record highs that day than any other day in history, period. Okay. And by the way, speaking of period, regarding what Sean Spicer said about Trump, it's unfortunate. Trump sometimes doesn't seize on, he's often right, but he doesn't quite nail the right way to justify his claims, right?
Yeah.
If you look at the 2,600 counties that Trump won, it's the biggest landslide since Reagan. It's bigger than Bush. It's absolutely categorically the biggest landslide in since Reagan and maybe even before Reagan. And notwithstanding, he had more Republican votes than ever in the history of the world. There were many record-breaking things that he accomplished that he didn't really. He pointed out the wrong things. Look, he won with the Electoral College. Okay, that's a big deal. He lost the popular vote mainly because of California. If it wasn't for California, he would have won the popular vote. But he won the Electoral College, by a pretty good margin. But he won the counties, he won the whole country by a spectacular margin. And that's what he should have been talking about from day one. Then nobody would ever have picked any holes in it because they couldn't pick any holes in it. It is the most, I absolutely believe sincerely, that the Trump inauguration was the most viewed inauguration in history, not necessarily in record numbers on the mall, on the outside of the Congress, but the reason why it was the most viewed event in history was because at the time he had about a 75% popularity rating in China, and he had about an 80% popularity rating in Russia, which means you had probably close to 1 billion viewers in China, and maybe hundreds of millions, across Europe and Russia. Worldwide, he absolutely was the most viewed inauguration of all time. Nobody can dispute that. It's an absolute fact. But he's never put it that way. He should have put it that way. It's unfortunate that he didn't, but that is indisputable because the Chinese were, couldn't get enough of Trump, and I think that the Chinese haven't really changed their tune too much about him since. And I think yesterday his ratings probably went up dramatically in China with the action taken by the government, which is a monumental win in of itself. What he accomplished yesterday was nothing short of spectacular, and it is a kind of a death knell for the Korean regime. And speaking of the what you were saying earlier, Dwayne, about destroying the country, this is one of Trump's art of the deals where he goes to the extreme, right? Saying, I'm going to do this. But, if they take him out in a pinprick and maybe take out, a battalion or a few generals along with him, and save the rest of the country, he's going to look like a hero. That's going to be a huge win for Trump. And, I'm pretty sure they're targeting this guy one way or another if the Chinese aren't themselves, because really, I think the Chinese have probably figured it out by now. This is a loser for them if they don't take him out, because sooner or later, if I was Trump, I'd be upping the ante against China in a big way. But since, you have to give him some credit, he didn't have to do that to get this far and to get this much cooperation. So having got it through friendly means, rather than antagonizing them, I think he's done pretty well. And I think he's told China in no uncertain terms. Why do you think China did this yesterday? I think Trump told him, it was an hour-long call, and, Trump's inclined to get a bit animated, and I think he told him pretty much, listen, we don't care what you guys do, we're going to take this guy out, plain and simple. You can't, look, the U.S. is facing, everybody's gotten complacent, they forgot it. Remember all the agony after 9/11 and the dread? And bleak future and everything else.
No one knew when another plane was going to fall out of the sky. Every church was filled to the rafters.
And what I said yesterday on the show, Trump, in a kind of a total out of the box surprise, went to Saudi Arabia, to the capital of Saudi Arabia, and got 53 Arab nations sitting down in harmony to listen to him, to stamp out this terrible scourge on humanity called ISIS and all this Islamic terrorism. He went to the heart of the matter. And, I don't want to jinx anything, but I think the U.S. has been a pretty quiet place since Trump got elected. There hasn't been too many outrageous things going on. There's been a few cops killed here and there, but nothing on the scale of what was happening under Obama. and we haven't had, any other things occur. So, you have to give Trump a tremendous amount of credit for that, because he got to the heart of the matter, and he has turned a lot of potential enemies into his friends. I mean, in literally in a weekend. I mean, this is a staggering accomplishment, because there was a fear factor, amongst everybody. I mean, it's just this whole sort of Islamophobia thing, where, because this stuff was coming from the Middle East, it kind of, in everybody's mind, it made every Middle East country sort of like an enemy, and he's turned that around 100%. I mean, on Fox the other day, they interviewed the president of Egypt. I asked him what he thinks of Trump, and he says, as soon as I saw Trump, I knew he was going to win, and I knew he was going to be a big friend to the Arab world. So and this guy is probably Trump's ambassador to the Middle East, because he's going. Egypt is a big deal, and he's going around and sort of corralling the rest of the nations and saying, "Listen, you've got to go with Trump. He's the new sheriff in town, and it's time to end all this nonsense." I mean, let's face it, Egypt has been hit pretty hard through terrorism. He's been hit very, very hard by ISIS in all kinds of horrible ways. So they have a lot to gain from stamping this stuff out. The Saudis, I mean, the Saudi royal family, there's about 5,000 princes over there who are basically living on borrowed time if they don't kind of reform, because that's why there's an ISIS. That's why there was a Bin Laden, because they're kind of going after the royal lifestyle, where these guys are stashing away billions. So that in
Why are there
many
so
ways.
many princes? I mean, if you read, King Arthur and all of that, there was a king, a queen, a prince and a princess. I mean, what's the deal? How did so many people get to be so rich for doing absolutely nothing? It's like
Well, it's like the
Kardashians.
I know it's a kind of a tribal thing, but I mean, if you got the right name, it's the Al Saud. Al Saud. If you're, I mean, they kind of founded the country, so they kind of got control of it, and it's a sort of a benevolent dictatorship in a way. But you got to give them a lot of credit. I mean, they've built up a unbelievable wealth. I mean, Saudi Arabia is not the richest country in the world, it's quite a way down the list in per capita income, but I mean, it's sort of on a par with the U.S. I think it's 40 or 50,000 a year per person. Maybe it was more in the past, but they've weathered the storm pretty well. I mean, if you look at the history of what they've done, I mean, remember in the mid 70s they got pretty upside down against the rest of the world, caused all the havoc in the 70s.
Right.
But then things settled down, and then they had to go through the 90s when the price of oil was very low, and they were kind of like in the background until it's kind of strange, this whole Bin Laden thing kind of elevated the Middle East to the world stage, and they've stayed on the stage ever since and become a pretty big part of it. Especially, I mean, I think the leader in Dubai, Maktoum, he's unbelievable. And this guy's he's one of the smartest humans that ever lived. He's an absolute genius, and you have to give him incredible credit for what he's done to Dubai. It's just staggering. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, he kind of built it. Build it and they will come is his mantra. I mean, he sort of created an oasis in the middle of the desert that has become, the center of the world, and certainly a big, major center of the Middle East, and the whole Abu Dhabi, the UAE, the whole phenomenon in that area is just mind-boggling. And the tragedy of that is that if Saddam Hussein had played by the rules, and instead of antagonizing the West and doing all the things he did, Iraq could have been that country, because the Iraqis are very, very smart people, as the Syrians are, and they could have had so much more of a better life. They could have been the financial center of the Middle East. They certainly had the acumen to be that. And so the Middle East, when Trump says it's a tragedy, he's right. A lot of it is a tragedy. But I think the Arab nations like Trump's kind of larger agenda, which is, he wants to get out of the Middle East. He wants to kind of withdraw so that we don't have to be spending trillions over there anymore. And that's a plus. That's why they like him, I think.
That would be good if we did get out of there and we weren't dependent upon them.
Well, I think it's part of the plan, but it's going to take some time to extract ourselves, and we've got to get out of Afghanistan as well. But isn't it interesting since Trump sort of, I don't want to jinx it again, but have you noticed how quiet things have become in the Middle East lately? I mean, listen, Obama was droning Pakistan or Afghanistan every day of the week at some stages, and there hasn't been hardly any drone strikes in Pakistan at all since Trump became president. There's been a few here and there in Africa, and even Afghanistan's gotten real quiet recently. So, there must be a lot of progress going on behind the scenes that, of course, the mainstream lunatics, the mainstream media, are paying no attention to.
The media, I mean, there's good and bad in the fact that Trump tweets his opinions and stuff. In my opinion, it's good because it's true. It's coming straight from him. It's not being filtered by the media. But it's bad because sometimes what he says, he seems like he said without the benefit of thought. But
well, he does listen. Sometimes he does kind of. Sometimes he can kill his own message and he can torpedo his own message. But he's what's going on behind the scenes is there is. I mean, let me just summarize something for you, because this kind of puts everything in a nutshell. I think I mentioned the other day, before Trump arrived on the scene, the two candidates were the wife of a former president and the brother and son of a former president, right?
Yes.
That was it. Okay. Now, before Trump came on the scene, Obama, they had, this corrupt, almost criminal organization with all the eavesdropping that's been going on and spying, had sort of been gearing up for the big election in 2016, where the fix was in for Hillary to win. They'd already kind of contained Bernie, and she was sort of like the chosen one, and everything was sort of, that way. And she raised billions of dollars, and then all of a sudden, Trump comes on the scene, and the whole game changes. But they've got the criminal apparatus in place, with all the unmasking and the surveillance, the illegal surveillance, and then this criminal former felon going to the White House 387 times because he becomes in charge of disruptions of Trump rallies. So this thing is absolutely rotten to the core. And remember, even up to a few weeks before the election, you remember the Time magazine meltdown and ultra meltdown and no chance for Trump. And even I remember it right now, the guy who got fired from CBS News said, no president is in hoity-toity. No president has ever come back from a 12-point deficit, to a presidential candidate to win. Well, Trump won, and the world changed. And now all this rottenness is coming out day after day. This Samantha Power, former UN ambassador, who you want to hear what you go and Google what she said about. She called Hillary Clinton a monster. She called a spade, before anybody else. Back in 2008, she called her all kinds of names under the sun. So how people got to love this woman beyond me, because she outed her a long time ago, and she was out to do everything. Look at what she did to Bernie Sanders. Look, she was out to do everything. And why didn't they want to give the FBI the computers? Because there was so much muck in them, they probably would have been in jail. So the whole thing's just rotten to the core. They got beaten. They can't stomach it because it was a shoe-in, and the whole thing went wrong. And now the whole corrupt last term of Obama's has been, even previous to that, because he probably stole the previous election as well in 2012. So finally all this rottenness, I think, will over time be expunged. But it's very bad because there's no outrage about it, and the Republicans should be this guy could be impeached, Obama, in how do you say, after the fact, post presidential impeachment, for some of the things he might have done. I mean, now they're asking, well, what did he know and when did he know it? Did he know all this stuff was going on? Because if he did, that would be an impeachable offense for sure.
He's as guilty as they are. Accessory.
Would you agree?
Oh yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. And he did. I mean, I don't know how you're gonna prove it, but
well, I think the truth will come out. It's coming out already. I mean, it's diabolical what's been going on, and all these. Remember, I had this Clapper and Hayden and all these guys who's Mr. Haughty-Taughty and out there. Oh, they would never do that. We'd never spy on this. The Brits. Remember what the Brits said? They're all up to it, up to their eyeballs. It's just disgusting. And as I may have said yesterday, what I would have added to Trump's speech is, we had this terrible war with Vietnam, 58,000 people, U.S. killed, probably millions of Vietnamese killed. It was a horrible war. But today, Vietnam and the U.S. are not just friends; they're allies. We're allies with Germany. We're allies with Japan. I mean, when is North Korea going to get the memo? And that's the real story. And we're still Russia is the most disrespected, and unrecognized ally America ever had, because we wouldn't have won World War II without them. They lost 42 million people. I mean, look, if Hitler hadn't gone after Russia in World War II, the outcome might have been very different. And the fact that Russia was part of the war, and eventually, clobbered the Germans from the north, made it a lot easier to win the war in less time and save a lot of lives. But they lost 42 million people, and that's why they're paranoid, and that's why that's a core thing in every Russian heart. So they don't like being encircled by NATO, particularly, especially right up to their borders. This is a big deal for them. And look, okay, and the Ukrainian thing is a very complex thing, because it was Khrushchev, I think, who was some sort of a Ukrainian, gave it back to Ukraine, and it's really part of Russia. So that it's sort of like it's almost like a president giving away Florida, to the West Indies or something, and then wanting it back. It's kind of a similar deal. So can you forgive Putin for wanting to get Ukraine back? No, he's why do you think his ratings are 80%? Because the Russian people didn't like it. So, and not only that, I mean, they've had the breakup of the Soviet Union, which was a very traumatic event, and if they'd probably played their hand better, they might have gotten Ukraine back, sooner, as part of the breakup deal. But they got it now, and I think it's a fantasy to think they'll ever give it back under any circumstances whatsoever. So you got to live with it, and that's really the only sin that Putin's committed, apart from the Russian hoax that they keep pushing every day, which he's denied. So there may be a lot of truth to that, because this is another part of this leaking thing. They may not want to give. If the FBI got a hold of the Democratic computers, they'd probably figure out where the hacking really came from. And I was watching John McAfee yesterday. I mean, John McAfee is one of the smartest guys that ever lived. He founded McAfee. It's worth about $8 billion. today.
He's a bit of a wild card, you got to admit, but he definitely is a smart guy. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, and he's born in England, by the way. but anyhow, he said categorically, look, you know, if I was going to hack, I'd leave Russian fingerprints all over the place. So, you know, they definitely, you know, the evidence is pretty much stacked against them. Look, they may have had some involvement, and there may have been some people in Russia who were pro-Trump, as Putin has admitted to. But the real story, one of these days, maybe they'll get a deal with this Julian Assange, and the truth will really come out, probably blow this whole thing sky high. But the whole system is so rotten right now, and there is, it's really, I think it must make many Americans very uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable.
Yes. Yes, indeed. I was just talking about Russians and programming, back when I was a software consultant. The smartest programmers that I worked with were Russians. Those guys, you know, they go to school year round and they don't get weekends off. They are.
Well, they're great chess. You know, the Russians, you know, they're the world champions of chess.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, look, the Russians, they are great hackers. They're very savvy computers. I mean, a lot of, you know, you've had some of these expat Russians do incredibly well in Silicon Valley and places like that. And this Kaspersky guy, he's brilliant. So, you know, and I mean, let's look, the Russians have got some pretty formidable hardware and ordnance, in spite of the fact that they're spending, you know, a fraction of what the U.S. spends on defense. They can make, you know, some of their planes are the best in the world. I mean, they really know what they're doing, you know, and I wouldn't want to, you know, contest their nuclear power or the missile power either. You know, these guys, you know, they were the pioneers. I mean, they got in space first before anybody. Remember that?
Yeah, yeah. Yes, I do. Just bring back all kinds of memories. No, when I lived in Oxford, England, all kinds of things. Anyway.
So how long did you live in England for, Mike?
3 years.
Yeah. What year was that? When was that?
It was 1989 to 1991. I'm sorry, 92.
Okay.
He was in the Air Force.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's
an air base at Oxford, right? Somewhere near there.
Well, Upper Hayford. It's nearby. There's a bunch of them. Okay. There used to be a bunch of them. They're all shut down now, I think. Used to be one in Minster. There was one in Croughton. There was one at Upper Hayford.
Did you ever fly into Biggin Hill?
No.
Down in Sussex, South London.
No.
That was a kind of a famous airport in World War II. You know, that was a.
What?
I used to have an uncle. I had an uncle who was an air race pilot. He was there. You know, he used to race planes.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, he crashed. You know, he lost his life, which is a pity. But oh, by the way, I meant to mention this, Dwayne. You were talking about your son the other day, mm-hmm. with his head in the clouds. You know, kind of reading books and stuff. And all I can say is, you're lucky to have a son who's doing that, better than doing drugs or being in a gang or something. And it reminded me, I have a nephew who's a kind of a saint thing. He's kind of like an absent-minded professor. And when he was younger, I had to, you know, I'm actually I think it's King's Cross Station that has the trains going south to.
I have been to King's Cross Station.
Right, that's the one with the Channel Tunnel these days, right? I think. And so or maybe it was Euston, I forget. But anyway, I invited him from his school to come up to London. I was going to have lunch with him. And I'm waiting around on this station, you know, for this kid to show up on the train. And the train comes and he's not on the train. So I eventually got hold of the school. And he completely forgot about it. So,
yeah, kids.
Anyway, oh, by the way, you this thing, Dotard, is well, so CNN's calling it an old lunatic, but the real definition is somebody who's old and going senile. So you know, I think Kim Jong is trying to impress the world with his Swiss education and his command of the English language. So he certainly got one up on him by doing that. And of course, you know, there's probably a hashtag dotard out there already, and there'll be all kinds of people like Kofefis and deplorables putting that in their Twitter names.
What does dotard mean? I raised that question earlier today.
A senile, an older person who's going senile is the definition of dotard.
I have never heard that word before today.
I don't think anybody has. It's a new one on everybody. That's what I was saying. This guy, I mean, he was educated in Switzerland, and he must have a command of the English language to have come up with that one.
Kim was educated in Switzerland.
He was indeed. Yeah.
I did not know
He's
that.
got an addiction. He's got an addiction to Swiss cheese, which is one of the reasons why he's very portly, and he's nearly died a few times because I think he's got gout, and he's probably got diabetes and a few other things going on with him. So you know, you never know. He might knock out. You know, he might just expire one of these days. Might blow a gasket.
Well, he definitely inherited some odd peculiarities. I can't encourage you guys enough to go to npr.org and find the story where his dad kidnapped the two big movie stars from South Korea. It was akin to kidnapping. If he had done it in America, it would have been like Doris Day and Rock Hudson or something. He kidnapped them and kept them locked up in his mansion, and he would trot them out at parties, you know, to mingle with his guests, and as soon as the guests left, he would lock them back up. And they were there for years until they finally managed to escape, when he became bold enough to allow them to go to another country to put on a performance, because it would make him look like a real big shot. And they got into some foreign embassy and asked for asylum, and they lived another 5-10 years after they escaped. In fact, I think the woman might still be alive. But it's a fascinating story, and I'm sure if you go to npr.org, you can put in some series of keywords, and you'll find it. And it will reshape whatever you might think about North Korea right now. There's a news article out that's of interest. As you all know, I have preferred Ethereum for a while over Bitcoin, and I've discussed the reasons. And the Motley Fool published an article today. Ethereum may very well leave Bitcoin eating its dust over the long run. Since the year began, there's been no hotter investment in cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin and Ethereum are the 1-2 punch in terms of largest market cap. They've returned about 300% and 3,200% respectively just since this year began. By comparison, it's taken the S&P 500 decades to return what Ethereum has in under 9 months. Emotions have played a critical role in pushing digital currency prices higher, since financial institutions have either avoided cryptocurrencies or have barred management from trading them. So it's been John and Jane Q. Public that has driven the prices higher. On a more fundamental basis, there's a lot of excitement surrounding the blockchain that underlies many of the top cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin and Ethereum. Blockchain is a digital, decentralized network that records all transactions without the need for a financial intermediary like a bank. Because these blockchains are often to some degree open source networks, it makes altering data very difficult. Thus, blockchain could become the preferred peer-to-peer and business-to-business channel for transactions in the future for a variety of industries and sectors. With the full understanding that the cryptocurrency model itself has no guaranteed future, it's my suspicion that Ethereum has a better chance of long-term success than Bitcoin. In fact, the early evidence suggests that Ethereum could leave Bitcoin eating its dust in short order. The major difference between the two digital currencies, and this, I really want you guys to get this, comes down to their blockchain technology. Ethereum's blockchain has one key advantage over Bitcoin: its support of smart contract applications. Smart contracts, which in their simplest form are computer protocols that help to facilitate, verify, or enforce the negotiation of a contract, help to automate complex physical and financial supply chain procedures and compliance processes. In plain English, it's a protocol within Ethereum's network geared at big businesses that should allow business to business and client to business deals to be done securely and efficiently. And I'll remind you that our currency is built on the Ethereum blockchain, not on the Bitcoin blockchain. And what I just said, that's the reason. Okay, so Bitcoin could go to, John McAfee's predicted $500,000. He's got some kind of bet going on the internet. And the girl kept calling him out on CNBC about it the other day, and he didn't really want to talk about it. But whether it goes to the moon or bites the dust, it's the technology behind it that's important and that will live forever. It's like indoor plumbing. Now that we've discovered it and understand it and have put it to use, we're never going to get rid of it. That would be like calling a plumber and going, "I'd like to have all the toilets removed from my home." You know, yeah, we just don't enjoy them anymore, and we're going to go back to the old way. It's not going to happen. So keep your nose to the ground, or your ear to the ground. I am working on the website. I do hope to have it finished in 2 weeks. And there will be an educational section. The white paper will be something you don't even want to read because it'll be highly technical. In fact, I'm going to have to pay somebody to write it. But the other part, I'm going to do my best to write it at a 5th grade reading level. Not looking down on anyone, but so that I myself can understand it. Okay? So that it makes sense even to me. So that when somebody asks me a question, I can answer it in terms that they will understand. You know, there's the old thing about the elevator pitch. If you're looking for a venture capitalist, if you can't tell him your entire idea, business model, what you need, and what you're going to do with it, and the time it takes to go from, I don't know if it's one floor to the next. How long's the elevator pitch, John? Is it one floor to the next, or is it from the
60 minutes? 60 seconds.
60 seconds.
60
yeah.
seconds. Yep.
Yeah. If you can't condense it in 60 seconds, then it's probably not a good idea. So, anyway, I do still need to get in contact with the folks in Zug, John. Just a reminder.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm working on it. The guy's away at the moment. He's in Saudi, but I'm probably already back on the weekend, and I'll get everything set up for you.
Okay. I want to get that done before
just going back to the
sales
market
commence.
for a second.
Yeah, back to the market. What do you got?
Well, as I was saying about Bastille Day, we had this probably as many as 20 world markets, and there was about a dozen U.S. indices making new highs that day, and maybe about eight more around the world, or possibly even more than that. Today, it's kind of getting close to the same again. You've got the transports on the point of hitting an all-time high. The Russell is actually hitting an all-time high. Now the Nasdaq's being a bad boy today. It's down. The Dow is also under pressure because of Apple and a couple of other stocks. The S&P is breaking down as well, which is not too good after being several days over 2,500. So the picture is not quite in place yet. However, what you have to be, what could happen, in the same way as the market often sells off before the Fed and then rallies, we might be selling off before this tax thing on Monday, possibly people thinking it's not going to be as good as expected. And then if they come out and it's better than expected, you could see a tremendous upside move in the market. That's kind of what I'm thinking might happen right now. So also,
when's it supposed to be announced?
I believe Monday.
Okay.
But then you've got, I think people got a bit spooked by this stuff coming out of North Korea yesterday. So the market's also succumbing to that. But Apple in particular, Apple is acting. Look, Apple. The problem with Apple is it tends to rally into new product launches, and then when the product comes out, it tends to sell off, and sometimes it can sell off dramatically. And that sell-off appears to have started. We're on a potentially, developing quite a serious top here at the moment. And remember, look, Amazon is in all kinds of trouble ever since they, started tampering with Clinton's book ratings. The stock's been, I think, just people have just said, I can't handle this anymore. I'm going to sell the stock. Yeah, and we put a sell on it the day that happened. Was a short on it at around, I think it was around 997 or so, just under 1,000. And the fact that it went back up to 1,000 and couldn't get through it is really a bad omen. So Amazon is in trouble, and it's kind of weird because Baba, which is its competitor, is doing a lot better. It's been going a lot higher since, but it's probably getting close to potential top. Baidu has also been doing extremely well, while Google has been faltering. Although Google has rallied in the last couple of days, but actually Google doesn't look too bad if you look at the chart. Could easily break higher again. And Facebook's coming off a little bit. Maybe this being in the news is not helping the stock. People just sell because it's in, it's because of negative news coming out like that. So, and even Netflix might have topped out either yesterday or today. It's actually got quite a nasty looking sell signal on it right now, developing. So the FANGs are really just acting horribly right now. I think that in fact we're at a double top on Netflix too, which is another reason to be careful. So
now, you brought up Apple and the product launch. This product launch has not gone the way previous product launches have. Apple's launch of the iPhone 8 kicked off today in a less lively mood in Asia versus the previous debuts, as fans are believed to be holding out for the premium iPhone X due out in early November. Hundreds of people usually gather at the Sydney City store with queues winding down the main street. I've been there. Not to the store, but to Sydney. George Street, when there is a new product release. But there were fewer than 30 people lining up before the store opened on Friday. While the number of people queuing up outside Apple stores have dropped over the years, with many opting for online purchases, the weak turnout on the latest iPhone has partly been to poor reviews. This guy who was the first in line...
There's the increased competition, because you got not just Samsung these days. Look, you got Motorola's come out with some pretty neat phones. You got Google coming out with a very big phone soon, next month, I think. Huge sort of game changer. You've got these Chinese like Huawei, and the Chinese version of Apple, and then you got an Indian version of Apple and a Russian version of Apple. I mean, listen, the numbers. Apple may have seen its best days in terms of sales, and now there's about 6 or even 8 different iPhones out there that are all pretty much the same. It's kind of like flying on a plane. Or driving a car. It's all you get there from A to B. That's what the phone does. A couple of bells and whistles here and there. But then the price. They may be pricing themselves out of the market too. So it's a very slippery slope that they're on right now. And remember, the whole world is satiated with these phones. And then if I was actually thinking this morning, if there's a downturn and everybody stops spending, which could happen, because that's what happens in a downturn. all this disposable income. I was thinking about this incredible story on Shark Tank, where the red dress
Oh, I
website.
remember her, that girl, the Red Dress Boutique, where she got
Right.
all of her
I mean,
customers
they were
on
doing
social
about
media.
12 million or so. They were doing about 12 million or something.
Uh-huh.
And these companies can get top heavy, and then all of a sudden their business can dry up because, in a recession, Shark Tank sort of started in just at the turn of, just as the market was starting, or the economy was starting to recover. So you get all this discretionary income where people, will spend on just junk basically, and a lot of this stuff is, I mean, when they make their pitch, and some of these pitches are amazing because, oh, how much did you sell? And they say, oh, 5 million, and people, they go, holy mackerel, how did they ever do that?
Right.
Off a website.
And then some guy will come out and they'll say, well, what's your year-to-date revenue? $500. And they're like, what?
Well, not quite.
How
Maybe
did you even get on the
500,000.
How did you get on the show? Yeah.
Yeah. So
do you think people are going to pay $1,000 for this new phone?
Well, yeah, there's going to be some people pay for it, but the thing is, the market is getting satiated and saturated, and there's always who knows, the better mousetrap around the corner. I mean, Samsung has become a very big pain in Apple's side. They sell more phones than Apple do today, and this guy Pogue, the New York Times critic, he's very good. They've basically got the features have they been stealing from each other, right?
Right.
Like some of the features of the new X phone were taken from the last version of Samsung phone. So between the two of them, they're almost like identical. It's just made by different manufacturers, or maybe even the same manufacturer, with a different brand name on it. It's pretty much coming down to that. Now, the Apple TV could be a lifesaver for them, possibly. That box that we talked about the other day.
Right.
Some of the, maybe, I mean, Microsoft has sort of stolen the show in terms of laptops with this Surface. I mean, I think they're doing brilliantly with that. They've really come in and sort of become the Rolls Royce of laptops. And finally got it right, and doing very well with it. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all turns out. But Apple stock doesn't look too good right now. It's come off pretty fast. It's come from 165 down to almost 150 pretty quickly. And going into the end of the week, with a pretty big down week, a $10 down week, that's quite a big deal,
Yeah, the last time I truly had disposable income, and I was looking for something to do with it, this is a number of years back. This is going back to 2002, 2003. Apple was trading at $12 a share then. I don't even know what Amazon was trading at the time. But I passed. And I think it was right before the iPod came out. And my wife's birthday came, and I bought one of the first iPods to hit the shelf at Best Buy. The sales clerk didn't even really understand it and know what it was and couldn't explain it. And it's like, okay, it's all right. I understand. I know what it is and I know how to use it. I took it home to my wife, and she just looked at it. She's like, what am I supposed to do with this? Well, it took a while for her to, just like TiVo. When I first bought her the first TiVo that came off the assembly line, she's like, well, what am I going to do with this? And then pretty soon she couldn't live without it. So I saw the future in those. Now, when they came out with a $600 phone, I'm like, well, that's insane. Nobody's going to pay $600 for a phone. But it wasn't a phone. It was a computer you could put in your pocket. And by the way, you could make phone calls, if you needed to. So, anyway, missed that boat.
The metals are had a bit of a rally overnight, but they're coming back off again.
Oh yeah, let's look at gold.
And
okay. Yeah, man, I really hated to see us break through 1300. I was hoping that we would spike it yesterday and then get back above 1300, hold on a pullback. Unfortunately, we ran right up to 1300, and it has become the current area of resistance. 13 right there, and right there. It's 1300. If we can't get back above that and hold it on a pullback, then I think there's a problem for gold.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's a bit of a chance here because the dollar did come down overnight, but it's on its way back up now, and the currency is coming off again. They had a bit of a pop from a pretty weak kind of a position. And listen, this other problem is platinum. Jesus, this platinum is just horrible. It's back down to 932, and that is a really bad omen. That is a really, really, really bad omen. It kind of looks like that we might be going to new lows in the platinum, which would not be good for gold, No.
Why? What do you blame gold's decline on? Was it the Fed meeting the other day? The unwinding of the balance sheet? I thought that would be good for gold.
The dollar rallying a bit. It hasn't rallied much, but it's been enough to take the gold down. I think there could be some manipulation involved. The Fed maybe wanted the gold to come down to a bit. Look, I think we could get down to 1275 or thereabouts. If we kind of bottom around there, I think then we could go back up. But boy, if we go below 1275, it won't be good. I don't think it's going to be good at all. It's kind of going to reverse the whole thing. But when you look at remember, we're still at 91. 91 and a half on the dollar. 92 on the dollar, and we've come down from 103. That's a tremendous, 10%, slightly more than 10%, 11%, 12% decline. That is a kind of inflation rate, and that inflation is probably going to show up in the economy in the next few months. That could turn the gold back up. A big time, actually. It could take it up a lot. So, the palladium did bounce back from 900, got back to 920 today. But we need to see the palladium go higher to lift the metals higher. So, I think we just have to see how next week plays out in these metals before we can. I think if gold goes back over 1300, then it's a buy after this, because this could be a retest of what we hit yesterday.
What is this Fed's action that Janet says they're going to take? How will that affect interest rates on mortgages, etc.?
Interest rates are going to rise, so it could be bullish for gold. Actually, could be bearish for the dollar. And they actually start. They're going to start in October. So, maybe this is. We're almost into October now. So, gold has a little bit of a sell-off here. Maybe it gets down to 1275. But I guarantee you. Well, I won't guarantee you, but I'd say fairly strongly that once the Fed starts pulling money out of the system, gold's going to start going up.
I'll always be long-term bullish on gold. It doesn't matter what happens in the short term, near term. I just know that when God created the heavens and the earth, He created a finite supply. sealed it up in the belly of the earth, and shut down production. So unless some of these clever guys figure out a way to mine precious metals from these asteroids that are zinging around, which Elon has tried to do, that could change the picture.
Gold is up 66-fold since 1940, and it's blown away every other asset out there. So, and there's something monumental going on with gold, and it's going to have another day. Believe me. And the next, look, I think we're already in the next uptrend in gold. This is just a correction. Maybe gold got a little bit over bullish, but we start. I think if we get back above 1300, start heading past 1325, you're going to actually see gold go up quite dramatically towards 1400. It might be in for a very fast run to the upside. And as this market gets, look, here we are. We're almost on a repeat of the Bastille Day. Look, if Monday comes in and we have and the market hits new highs, and we start having synchronized new highs, we've got a dozen indices all hitting new highs, and maybe the world indices as well. I mean, if you look at the British market, I noticed somebody was showing the British market this morning, and it's kind of consolidating in a big wide band, and it looks like it's going to break out to the upside.
You're talking euro?
Yeah, no, the British stock market.
Oh, okay.
And the European markets have actually been quite strong. And by the way, the PMI came out in Europe, strongest growth since this recovery coming for Europe. So this I mean, when there's 45 OECD countries growing around the world, it's never happened before. I mean, we have synchronized global growth going on at a tremendous clip, and it's lifting the U.S. It's lifting all boats. It's even lifting North Korea. So it's and look, China's come back dramatically as well. So the situation, if this continues, this sort of juggernaut uptrend, and like we were talking about yesterday, if it breaks out to the upside, starts going parabolic, that is going to bring on inflation sooner than later. But it's inevitable. It's coming, at some point in the next couple of years, there's going to be a big move in gold. And remember, from 2004, 2005 to 2007, the markets and gold both went up together. And I think we're in that sort of same, similar kind of economic cycle right now, where the markets and gold where pretty much everything can go up. Look at the grains today. We mentioned yesterday, I thought the grains were going to go higher. And we put out a buy yesterday, or a rebuy after this consolidation. And they're really, look, we're going into a Friday, we're going to close on the all-time high on soybeans, or recent recovery highs. We could be 1,000 by the middle of next week on beans. And the wheat is acting really well. And as I said, when you get a rally in the fall like this, and we're getting a rally in the fall, make no mistake, this is a very big fall rally for the grains. Off supposedly, when the market starts going up on bad news, that's usually very bullish, and that's what's going on with grains right now. We had a very bearish for grains prices report. The market spiked down and reversed, and look at the performance since. And we nailed it on the show. We explained it at the time. It was happening. Remember, I said the day of the spike, if we nip this in the bud and go higher, that's the exact wording I used. We're back in the bull market. And you can't have grains going up for much longer without gold joining in, because the commodity index. Look at the energy hitting new all-time highs, new recovery highs today on heating oil. We're almost at new recovery highs on gasoline, and we're basically new recovery highs on global oil, on Brent crude, and new for a few more dollars. Don't forget the actual new recovery high now on crude is 51 or 52, I think, and so it's only $1 away from taking that out. So once that happens, I think the oil will gravitate higher, and that's also bullish for the metals. So, and if you look at the commodity index, the global commodity index, it's breaking out to the upside after sort of basing out for a couple of years.
Couple questions for you.
Look at lumber. Look at lumber. I mean, Dwayne, remember we talked about lumber? Lumber is creeping higher every day, and I got a massive buy signal at 377. And we're at 399, 393 right now, and you know, we could come in here next week and lumber could be limit up because the devastation is so widespread. I mean, you know, it's almost, I'm surprised lumber isn't limit up already. It's almost inevitable that lumber is going to go limit up here, and this is what happened after Hurricane Andrew. You know, it didn't go a limit up right away. It kind of digested the damage for maybe a day or two or a few days, and then it went limit up, locked limit up for several weeks. It was quite, you know, the only difference this time is we're starting from a much higher price point. I think back in the Andrew days we were down maybe 200 and we went to 400, something like that. But you know, we're getting close to the highs of the year on lumber right now.
There's two questions for you. One lighthearted from Pete. He says, when John says he wasn't fibbing, does that mean he doesn't use fibs? And that was a lighthearted comment. But in your analysis, do you utilize Fibonacci?
I don't actually. I'm not a fibber guy.
Okay. But you do use Elliott wave, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
See, now I don't use Elliott wave, but I very, very much am, because I was, you'll recall, I was in that Fibonacci torture camp for a couple of years, and so I did learn some things. One was like how to treat people with respect, but I also did learn that with fibs, you know, on a larger time frame, say an hourly chart, if you have an impulse move up and you get a 50% retracement, it's almost guaranteed, and there's no guarantees in the market, but it's almost guaranteed that 50% retracement, fund managers, you know, whoever, they're going to come in and they're going to buy the market, and you're going to get a bounce. Will it go up and put in a new high? Maybe, maybe not. But just the bounce alone, having the knowledge that it's coming and waiting to see it start, and then to just jump on their coattails and ride it far enough to get your goal for the day, learning that for me was invaluable. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The wave thing, even though Ed, who was with us yesterday, his software automatically does the wave count, but it's constantly changing.
Look, I was going to comment on that. His wave. I mean, look, I concur with his wave counts that he was talking about yesterday, and I don't look. You know, we're probably in the third of a fifth wave right now. I mean, we could be in a third of a third, but which would be incredible. And in some ways, we probably are in a third of a third, because look, the breadth of this market it's never happened before in history. We've never had a bull market where the breadth, the advanced decline line's been making new highs every day. This tells you that the body of the market, it's not just the leaders. It's like the FANGs. I mean, the FANGs are, you know, making new lows, and the Nasdaq's just, you know, a little fraction off a new all-time high. That shows you how the body of the market, the bell curve of the market, is really very bullish. And you know, there's been some changes here in the last few weeks or month or two, where the, you know, some of the stocks making, you know, above their 50 moving average and this sort of thing are definitely in a decline. So the market is weakening to some extent, but it doesn't mean to say they can't, I mean, be reinvigorated, like the transports and the banks, for example, which have taken over the leadership right now, and the energy stocks as well, and maybe the pharmaceutical stocks, you know, which were AWOL from the last big rally, are kind of kicking in now. So, you know, this is quite amazing how these different sectors are kind of, you know, taking over they're doing their part of the upleg, if you like, contributing to the juggernaut market. And one of the things that may be hard for people to realize is, if you take 1975, let's say that the bottom in 74, 75 was the low, right? And this is the beginning of the technological revolution. 100 years before the Industrial Revolution started in 1874, 75. So 100 years later, the exact same thing happens, but it's not automobiles and horses and carts and trains and things that are driving the economy. It's chips and technology. And so, which started in 85, we ran up to 82. We had a kind of a first wave up from 85 to 80, and turned around into the bottom at 82. Then we started, actually a wave one, a larger wave one. We had triple wave one up to 1990, right? So we had a wave one up to 87. 87 was an ABC. It wasn't the end of the world. It was just a correction. And then we had another wave one up to 90. And then January 16th, 1991 was the biggest opening gap in history. The start of the Gulf War started a 9-year bull market. That one day was so powerful that it kicked off a 9-year bull market. And by the way, I'd like to make a point. There's an awful lot of people who've been bearish on this market, and there's a hedge fund, some Hendry, some guy out of England, who's closing down his fund, and he's blaming the markets because he said the markets are wrong. Well, the markets are never wrong. We've been in the biggest bull market of all time, but most people were unable to recognize that. And in the same way as Bob Prechter, Gail Dudak, Michael Metz, Ross Perot, Joe Granville, RIP, and somebody else, I forget who the sixth was, but there were 6 of these high-profile analysts all through the 90s who were bearish on the market for most of the time. And yet the market closed at a new, higher every year for 9 years in a row. Well, guess what? Go back and look at what happened since 2009. We've been closing every year higher since 2009. I think one of the indices closed down. Maybe the Dow closed down fractionally 1 year, but I think the Nasdaq's been up every year since, and maybe the S&P too. It's sort of like a repeat. It's not only just a repeat of the 90s. It's a super stronger version of the 90s. What we're in right now, because we never had these multiple all-time highs in the 90s. I mean, the German market was AWOL from the 90s, and so was the Japanese market. They weren't. I mean, the U.S. was carrying the world in the 90s. What a lot of people don't realize. And thanks to the innovations and the internet and the deregulation of the phones and the airlines and everything, we had a rip-roaring economy where it made huge, the middle class became really, really wealthy in the 90s. But anyway, so we started we started the third wave in the 9-year bull market, which peaked in 2000. That was the end of the third wave. Then we had an A wave down into 2002-3. We had a B wave up, which went to a new high in 2007, very bullish, right? And then we had a terrible C wave, which was the 7 to 9 disaster. And now ever since we've been in this incredible upwave, which just could be a fifth wave, and it could be a very listen, this multi-year bull is so strong that we certainly look like we're going to have a 9-year bull market, 9 and 9, 18, so at least till 18, and might get extended right through to 19 or 20, because of Trump. So and we may be in, we're already the second longest recovery in history right now. And we're counting down the days before we're the longest recovery in history. And based on the evidence, the Fed, when they start raising rates, the recession usually takes 48 months or 51 months before it kicks in. We've got about 20 or 30 months still to run. So unless something really bad happens, the odds of getting into recession before 2020 seem, kind of remote right now. Which is extraordinary, but it is we may have changed the business cycle to some extent, in this era simply because the recovery's been so slow, if you like. It hasn't gotten overheated, and it still isn't. It still isn't even overheated, which usually prompts the Fed to start raising rates. The Fed has only tickled the rates so far. It's almost like it doesn't even matter. The rate differential is almost negligible. So it's almost like they haven't even started raising rates yet. Doesn't mean they're not going to, because we could find ourselves overheating going into 19 or 20, where they suddenly raise rates like they did in 1980. Could go up 6, 7, 10% or more. And if that happened, it would be catastrophic, because people are so used to low rates. This is the nightmare scenario where you've got all these portfolio insurance type thing that happened in 87. You've got all these derivatives out there, trillions of them, quadrillions of them, right, that are all geared to hedge against something like this happening. So we could really have a huge blow up, but it may not happen till the early 20s. If this cycle is extended as long as I think it will be, especially if we get the tax cuts and we get the stimulus and everything else. So and remember, the world's been in a pretty heavy slump for the last, the Europe particularly. And when you have a long slump and you start coming out of it, it doesn't end quickly. It tends to go on for a long time. So that's really what's going on right now. We're in a mega recovery, and it's been aided by the incredible stimulus that's still being added around the world. And that stimulus is benefiting the U.S. tremendously, in spite of the rate hikes, which are negligible. So, and don't forget, look, you could hike rates to 3, 4, 5, even 6%, and the economy probably still keeps thundering on before it kind of runs out of gas. So, and that would take quite a while for the Fed to do that, because this Fed is I don't think they're going to do anything too aggressive anytime soon, unless something really extraordinary occurs. So, the die is cast, and it's very favorable to extending this bull market and this recovery into record territory. And not only that, if we start going parabolic, like we were suggesting yesterday, it just creates more wealth. And, because we're almost at 5 trillion. We've got to be near 5 trillion now. The household wealth came out yesterday. It's up to 1.67 trillion. If you add that to about 3.5 trillion in stock gains, you're talking about 5 trillion. There's $5 trillion of net worth being created since the election, and probably about 12 trillion worldwide. It is absolutely phenomenal, and that's never happened before. Bodes extremely well for the future, especially if we keep this juggernaut going, and we make even higher highs yet ahead.
The other question that Frederick had asked, he wanted me to ask you, was, have you been watching? Hang on, scroll back up here. Has John been watching the PBS documentary about the true history of the Vietnam War?
No, I haven't. No.
Frederick, what are your thoughts on it? Is it telling us something we didn't know? Is it breaking new ground? Is it good, bad? What's your take on it? Absolutely. So in other words, we're hearing things we never heard before? Is that what you're telling me? Yes. Well, you know what? I have on demand, so maybe I will be able to go pull it up and maybe over the weekend watch it. I joined the Navy just as the Vietnam War was ending, so I never saw combat duty. But a friend of mine, a guy who worked for me as my general manager for many years, he did fight. He was the radio man in his platoon, and he climbed out under enemy fire to retrieve the radio, got back to cover, called in air support, saved his whole platoon, and he was awarded the Bronze Star for that. And we were friends for so many years. He's the biggest jerk you ever met in your life. He just had this incredibly horrible attitude. I mean, he's the kind of guy that's, you're driving and there's some homeless guy on the side of the road, you know, with a sign up. You know, he rolls down his window and screams, "Get a job!" And I'm like, you know, Alan, you don't have to have all this hatred and anger bottled up inside of you. You weren't in Vietnam. Okay, I wasn't, you know, and I'm glad, because I'd have probably shot you. But anyway, so all right. Anything else you want to add, John?
No, listen. Have a great weekend. And thanks for the invite, and thanks for everybody listening.
Thank you for coming. And you know, as soon as you can possibly get me in touch with that guy, I just need to know what I'm dealing with and what I'm up against. Okay.
You got it. All okay. Right. Listen. Have a great weekend to everybody. Thanks
really
a lot.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Okay. Bye bye. Okay, we lost everything. Where did it all go? All right. S&P 500 Emini Futures. I'm just going to go through this really quick. I talked, if you did not catch yesterday's show, I spent about 45 minutes teaching what I only teach typically behind closed doors when someone becomes a Concierge Trade Alert client. Okay? But every day you guys sit through the recap of the alerts, so I just want to give you a little deeper understanding. It's not a guru, it's not a chart, it's not a magic potion that tells you where to put your stop and where to put your target. It is in fact the chart itself that tells you. I give you the important price, the important area. I give you 8 markets a day, 2 trades per market. That's 16 potential triggers. Because most markets will, or some of the markets each day will trigger multiple times, like the Dow here. Okay, 8 markets, 16 trades when you open the email. That turns into, by the end of the session, probably 20 to 40, maybe even 50 triggers. Do you take every trigger? Absolutely not. What you're looking for is the perfect storm, where you have a low risk, high probability setup. Because when I issue the alerts, I have no way of knowing what the market structure will be later that night or the following day when the trigger comes into play. All right, right here, you got $150 risk, dropped $350 per contract. We never get out at the exact swing high or the exact swing low because we trail our stop. All right, when this thing started running back up, you get taken out. So you probably don't end up with 350, you probably end up with 300. But you had a 2-to-1 risk ratio. You risk 150, maybe picked up 300. Now, price gets back above the trigger, puts in a new swing high, a lower swing high, and so here you've only got about $100 risk. Now, you might have taken profit here, okay, or whatever you did, price came back, put in another swing high right about the same place. So whether you were in this trade twice right here or just once, you had $100 risk and it dropped $250 per contract. Okay, and the chart tells us I determine the important price, important area, and you see it every day how it comes back to test those areas. Okay, you simply have to spend time with me in a mentoring session to learn how to read the chart so that you know where the stop and where the target should be. Okay. Soybeans. By 976, ran up 3.5 points. Your stop needed to be at about 968. Okay, so that's 8 points at $50 a point. That's $400 of risk. We don't like to risk more than $300 on a concierge trade. Now, this would have been an absolutely beautiful trade if price had dropped a couple more ticks. The swing low was 76 and a quarter. We needed it to get at least one tick below the trigger, and it would have led to this. Almost no risk at all, and there you go. But sometimes you just got to walk away. Okay. Bonds. Okay. Buy 154.08 with a stop way down here. Not a chance. With a stop right here, 7 ticks. With a stop right here, 11 ticks, and it looks like it's about to go again. Okay. Next, crude oil. Crude oil. It hit the trigger line. Your stop on these would have been up here at about 50.75. So that would be about $450 of risk. Too much. So that's a walk away. Okay. In Q. Sell 59.30. Okay. $180 of risk. Over here, your risk would have been way back up here at 59.46. So that would be 30 to 46 at 16 times 20. That's $320 risk. Okay. It dropped $380. Again, we don't like to risk more than $300 per contract. There will be some cases where you think it's justifiable. Okay. Here we had $180 risk. It dropped $250 per contract. And here the risk would have been up at 44. So it would have been 14 times. That would have been $280 risk. It only dropped 100 and, well, I guess it actually dropped a little more. It dropped to $59.30 to $59.15. That's 15 points times 20. It's actually about $300 per contract. Okay. Now, where on this trade here, where it dropped 250, where the risk reward ratio was acceptable because the potential target was here, okay, where the arrow is pointing, but buyers stepped in early and drove it back up. It still made $250 per contract available. You're not going to get all 250, but you could have gotten some of it. All right. Over here, your risk was 36. So you had $120 risk on this trade, and it dropped 300 bucks. Okay. Virtually no risk on this trade, and you're already in the money. Okay. All right. Crude has been used to be one of my most volatile markets, and then it just dried up. Crude, NQ, Russell. Haven't covered that. All right. Now, this was a toughie. Okay. The email said by 1446. This is where your risk needed to be. 200 bucks. The only hope you have here is if you go to a smaller time frame, like 5 minute or the 4-tick range like we use in the trading room every day, to see if you can get an entry that allows you to risk less than 200. Why? Because your initial target is only 150 bucks. So the risk has to be less than $150. 1-to-1 is as low as we ever go. When we can get 1-to-2, 1-to-3, that's awesome. But if it's If it's less than 1 to 1, okay, if you got to risk 150 to, I'm sorry, if you got to risk 200 to potentially make 150, that's a walk away. Now, did it shoot on up to make $500 available? It did. However, even when I used the fib extension tool from the low to the high to the pullback, 100% extension took us right into this same area. Okay, and so you would walk away from this trade and then you'd look back later and go, oh no. That's trading. Some of the best looking trades, you're going to get stopped out, and some that don't look worth it, go to the moon. Okay? That's why your emotions have to take a back seat to everything. Gold, we said to consider selling $12.92. Your stop would have needed to be here. Too much risk, no trade. And I think that does it. So again, 8 markets every night, 2 trades per market, 16 when you open the email, 16 potential triggers. Because some markets, especially on days when we have normal volatility, will get triggered 2, 3, 5 times. All right, so you could be looking at as many as 20 to 40, even 50 some days. That many triggers. So what you're doing is you're being patient and waiting for the perfect storm, where you have the opportunity for low risk and a decent profit, like here. Okay, when we triggered 24.93, the swing high was way back here. Okay, too much risk. If we drop back through the trigger from here, okay, because this will have been the most recent swing high, unless one of these candles goes up higher than that. In fact, that risk needs to be, no, because we're looking at this as the last swing high. That's the right place. 6 points in the S&P, $50 per point, it's $300. It's a rare occasion that you'll risk more than $300 on a Concierge Trade Alert. You have to really see something extraordinary on the profit side to make you do that. Okay? All right. Dow presented 2 good opportunities. Proper risk-reward ratio. Soybeans, failed trigger. Bonds. The least amount of risk produced the greatest profit. Almost no risk at all. And it ran up 11 ticks times 31.25 per tick. If you go to the page, I think I showed you yesterday, emini.cfrn.net, right above the baseball player. To go straight to the $1 for 5-day trial, click here. No automatic rollover. Includes access to the live training room. If you've already taken the $1 trial, but you didn't really understand it, it didn't make sense, send me an email. Tell me about your experience, and I will give you another trial without the $1. If you've never paid the $1, you got to pay the $1. But if you've already paid the $1, you want to take another trial because you convinced me in your email that you now have a better understanding of how it actually works. But you got to promise me that you're going to trade it in sim, not with live money, because it's going to take you some time to quote unquote get your sea legs. Okay? If you have not been to the new page, facebook.com/crypto daily info. Like it, follow it, read the news articles, okay? It's part of getting yourself educated. It's not about whether you buy Bitcoin or you buy Ethereum or you buy Litecoin or you buy CTG. It's not about that. It's about understanding the technology and the industry. We are on the edge of something big, potentially as big as the internet. Okay, and while many lost everything in that first dot-com bubble, many fortunes were made and are still being made. So you owe it to yourself to it. If you never get involved, if you never invest a dime, you owe it to yourself to understand what it is and how it works. Okay? And you'll be the life of the party. They'll all gather around as you explain it. All right, I'm going to run, guys. Okay, I'm going to run. I can't play any outro music today. I can't play the disclaimer that comes on at the end. What I can do is I can tell you this. Always do your own due diligence. Anything discussed on this radio program is not a solicitation to buy or sell any security. Always consult with a licensed investment professional before making any investment decision. Okay? It is the weekend, and on the weekend we like to spend quality time with our family. I'll see you all in church on Sunday. Thanks so much for tuning in. Whoever you are, wherever you are, may God continue to richly bless you with His mercy